So Hamas has committed another ceasefire violation, but of course there have already been ceasefire violations when it comes to the release of the hostages, or specifically the bodies of the murdered hostages that have still not been delivered. There's still, I think there's still 16 bodies left that Hamas has still yet to deliver, which is a ceasefire violation since they were supposed to do it pretty much right after Israel releases the terrorists. Uh, and yeah, today on Sunday in the morning, local Israeli time, Hamas has attacked IDF in I believe in the region around Rafah. Uh, Thankfully, Israel at least responded and struck within Gaza, targeted I think a Nakba commander in central Gaza. I'm not sure if we have any confirmation about. Um, if they were taken out, but this did happen, and of course IDF and Israeli officials have called this a blatant violation of the ceasefire. So you might be saying, oh, this might mean the end of the ceasefire. Well, we'll talk about what it actually means and what we will see both today and in the upcoming days. Before that, there are a few other messages or other news that I think we can cover today. Just a random thing that might be a fuller episode a bit later, but apparently Houthis have attacked a UN site in Yemen, in the capital Sana'a, and have taken UN hostages. But we don't have to. Yeah, it is a terrorist organization, but we as international community, we don't care about those terrorist organizations doing that, and we'll always act surprised when it happens, despite the fact that, if you have, not even if you have any principles, even if you have some like trained, uh, what's the guy's name, Pavlov effect of like, oh, terrorists do bad things. It should be automatized. You shouldn't need a principle to understand that a terrorist organization or a terrorist state will always try to go against the deal, will never care for anything besides power, besides terrorizing people, besides achieving some political goal. Yet we keep acting as if these people want to live. By these people, I mean the Houthis, Palestinians for that matter, Iranians, or more of a large part of Iran, since there are at least some opposition in Iran. But yeah, this is happening. So separately, something we've of course seen happening in Gaza is Hamas taking over, slaughtering civilians, basically trying to intimidate its population towards, well, basically reminding them, no, we are still in charge. Um, and for a little bit, it seemed like Trump basically gave the right, or sort of gave a free hand to Hamas to basically do whatever they want in Gaza, saying, they are taking care of very bad gangs. Um, but now it looks like the State Department, specifically, this is State Department has said to media that it informed mediators, I think it was Qatar and Egypt, that basically Hamas is planning to do something to its civilians. Surprise, surprise. And State Department has said, quote, measures will be taken to protect the people of Gaza and preserve the integrity of the ceasefire. And here is something that's interesting, the way people talk about it, right? We need to do something in Gaza when it comes to these things to prevent the collapse of a ceasefire. But this is not some, and I'm trying to come up with a sort of like a scenario from history, but this is not like you are trying to, like, a country has already surrendered, you are trying to make peace, and some like terrorist group or some sort of like insurgent group inside the country that has no connection to the regime is like trying to hold on to power, or anything amongst those lines. This is it's a must. That's your negotiating partner. Your negotiating partner is trying to destroy a ceasefire. You cannot then come and say, no, 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 we'll simply stop this and then we'll still have the ceasefire. No, they are trying to violate it. The people you've agreed to a ceasefire with are actively trying to violate it. What is your goal, or how do you expect to basically push this ceasefire through if they don't want it? Hamas is trying to see how far can they go. Something we've seen when this strike happened, but even in the past, is this: oh, Hamas says, oh, we know where the bodies of the hostages are, but IDF shouldn't strike us, or IDF should help us because we need to get them from the rubble, or we need some excavation equipment to basically get them. Hamas is trying to push the envelope on what it can get away with. This is something we've seen with Putin for a long time, right? It's, oh, first it's a random strike in a NATO country, then it's drones going into a NATO country. He keeps pushing and pushing to see what he can get away with. And Hamas is doing the same, right? It's, first, we want to deliver the bodies, or we'll only deliver a little bit, and we'll see what we can get away with. And now the goal is to see, can we use the bodies of the murdered hostages the same way as living hostages, basically as a way of nobody ever fighting? Can Hamas go grave digging in Israel, get the bodies back, and serve the same function as living hostages? Um, as I said at the start, thankfully Israel at least responded with a strike, so it's not like Hamas can do whatever it wants. But still, you know, this is a terrorist organization. You know what they are capable of. You know what they are trying to do, and you still are trying to act as if, you know, if we simply show the strength this one time, it will somehow go well. We have a super chat from Wolf Guy. Thank you so much. A super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And a super chat from Bronx Guy Gun Hill Road. Thank you so much. Now, let's see. We have one more quote from the State Department. This planned attack against Palestinian civilians would constitute a direct and grave violation of the ceasefire agreement and undermine the significant progress achieved through mediation efforts. So there was no progress made. The idea that releasing of the hostages, which is mostly what has happened, and IDF pulling out of some territories, is some sort of, we are moving forward to achieving a ceasefire. The idea that simply returning to October 6th is some sort of achievement we have done is ridiculous. The only moving towards some peace would be complete the dismantlement, I think that's the word, of Hamas, and occupation of Israel or deportation of Palestinians. Again, this is the idea that you deport an enemy population that has decided to wage war against you is something new. Is no, this always happens. After World War II, Germans from Czechoslovakia were deported. And this is not like, oh, there was a collective punishment for Germans in Czechoslovakia. No, the Germans in Czechoslovakia supported Nazi regime. They actively funded parties. They actively tried to overthrow the regime to basically join the Nazi regime. So this is what you get. You do get deported when you try to destroy the nation you are part of, or the nation that's right next to you. I've said the same thing about Ukraine. If Ukraine manages to take back Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk, yeah, there would be some deportation. Those are the people that decided to actively fight against the Ukrainian state. They've actively tried to overthrow it. They actively tried to completely collapse it. And what do you expect, that once the regime is able to take back power, that now nothing will happen to you? That's ridiculous. This is simply justice. So something we finally heard from, or at least I haven't seen before, and I've finally seen some comments on that, is from the National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has been on, I think this was Channel 12, and he said that he gave Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a deadline to dismantle Hamas and enact death penalty for terrorists, threatening again that if the conditions were not met, his party would leave the government, which I haven't checked it before this, but at least last time I checked, would pretty much mean the government doesn't have a majority. Doesn't necessarily mean the collapse of the government. Uh, you only need a majority when you do a budget. Well, you need a majority when you do laws, but the only time where like the government falls if it doesn't have the majority is budget and confidence vote. And I believe even when the Itamar Ben-Gvir's party was out of the government before, they wouldn't actively vote for the collapse of the government. So they were sort of like silent confidence support. So yeah, he said that if the conditions were not met, he would quit. Quote, what I want, and this is also what Netanyahu promised me, is the dismantlement of Hamas. And if he doesn't dismantle Hamas, he knows very well what will happen. He said on Channel 12's Meet the Press in an interview. Uh, so this is interesting, although it's the same thing as with everything. I think even Trump has said Hamas has a deadline to dismantle, and if it doesn't, then very bad things will happen. But in a similar way, without having a deadline, without having uh, some, although it seems like he says he has deadline, he just doesn't say it. But when you don't have a public deadline that people can hold you to, it doesn't mean much. So yeah, we'll have to see where we go with this. I mean, I think we absolutely should see the dismantlement of Hamas, but also the occupation of Gaza should be an ultimatum. If we don't, um, there's a few things that can happen. I think my prediction, and I guess we'll go to that in the second when we talk about the ceasefire. Let me just look at the chat. Uh, yeah, somebody says, or a principle to which people can hold you. Yeah, absolutely. The fact that nobody or very few people do really have sort of like a principled stance of this is exactly what needs to happen. No, like sort of like general, we want to go in this way, but no, this needs to happen. Nobody has that. And maybe that is an effect of politics that you have to compromise. But it's a very unfortunate part of politics because people talk about like, oh, politics, but those are people's lives. Those are politics. Might be just some fun thing for like people in the West who support the pro-Palestinians, but it actually means how many people will get kidnapped next time or will next time happen. This is what politics really is about. Uh, Bonnie in the chat says, so funny, in pre-election rally, Trump literally said, if you can get away with you gotta do it. Surprise forces the bottom line. Sounds the same everywhere. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like Hamas has no this like it needs to do so. Like this is the nature of evil. It needs to exploit the good. So if you have a deal with the good, you need to break it. You need to see how much you can get away with. This is not an agreement between equal good partners. This is a deal between relative or absolutely the good in comparison to Hamas, and Hamas, an evil terrorist organization. So yeah, Hamas should do as much as it can. Um, I'm just trying to see. They're treating Hamas like a drug seeker going through withdrawals rather than a terrorist group. Yeah, I mean, on some level, yeah, they are treating Hamas as if, yeah, as if, oh, they just fell on the bad side of life, and now we have to sort of have a tough hand, but we still love them, so we still want good for them, and we just need to help them, or that is sort of like the view of the Palestinians, and it's absolutely wrong. People have free will, and especially when it comes to the general population. Palestinians are largely pro-Hamas and largely in support of a violence against Israelis, against Jews in general. So let's ask this question if, and I think that's the biggest thing, will the ceasefire collapse? And, at the end of the day, that's Netanyahu and his war cabinet's decision. But what we generally know is um, ceasefire rules are only as good as you are willing to enforce them. So was the attack of Hamas a ceasefire violation? Yeah, you could take it that, but what are you willing to do about it? What is the, and this is oftentimes a big problem with the deal like this, like what is the mechanism for going back, right? It's I mean, right now it seems like if Hamas attacks IDF, then Israel will strike back. This doesn't seem like a ceasefire violation. This seems like a status quo we've seen in the past, that basically we are sort of living with this fragile peace. If Hamas attacks, we do a tit for tat, we attack back, but there will be no broader conflict, which goes to me as another evidence of maybe this is the new status quo. Maybe the yellow line will become the new sort of, I mean, green line is something a little bit different, but yeah, basically just another colorful line. It's Israel from now on will occupy 50% of Gaza. Uh, it will have, it might just be sort of like a demilitarized zone, where basically if Hamas crosses it, they will destroy it, but they will never pull out and they will never go in. Somebody says, what do you mean Hamas did attack IDF soldiers today? Yeah, maybe I wasn't clear. Yeah, they did attack. But when it comes to ceasefire being over, uh, that is sort of like a decision of Israel that as of right now, it doesn't seem like it's taking. Basically, it did strike back, so that did happen. But basically, the ceasefire seems to be sort of like still ongoing. Because for ceasefire to be over, what that would mean is IDF is going back through the yellow line. IDF is going back into Gaza. That is for me a definite ceasefire is over. This is not happening. And also, Israel wouldn't expect the bodies anymore because if ceasefire is over, it means Hamas has no, I don't like to use like obligation, but Hamas has no obligation to do something about it. Bonnie says, did Houthis take 20 hostages today? Wonder what the UN will do about it. They will do absolutely nothing about it. Houthis have taken UN hostages in the past, and UN has, Houthis have taken hostages today. UN will continue acting as if these are equal partners, that Houthis have we simply need to negotiate. I mean, this is what the UN always says, right? It's we need to talk, we need to negotiate. It's very slow when it comes to any responses. Although the Houthis were one of the few things where even the UN Security Council could agree on, you could get like Russia and China on board with doing something about the Houthis in the past. But if it will happen now, I mean, there's just so much terrorism support. There's so much anti-Israeli sentiment in the international community that, yeah, terrorists are trying to see what they can get away with, and they are able to get away with a lot. WB say Egypt is losing income because of Houthis, but again, that is a mistake. Like these regimes do not care for living. If they did, they would establish capitalism. They would recognize individual rights of their citizens. They would go for westernized style of governments. But no, instead they put dictators in charge. They barely have any elections. They do not care about, I mean, even if they have elections, they do not understand the meaning of elections. They do not have the tradition of republicanism, and I mean in sort of like a broader sense, not the American Party. Um, and the biggest problem is we do not stand up for our values. We do not stand up for the Republican, liberal, Western values. And when we don't, we cannot, or it's hard to expect somebody else to do so. So first and foremost, and I think the greatest way to stand up for those values would be to occupy Gaza, to either deport or establish some pathway towards occupation, then residency, then potential citizenship in decades and decades. Some form of that needs to happen in Gaza. Nobody else will be able to de-radicalize the Palestinians. And we need to call out Palestinianism for the evil that it is. The same way we called out Soviet Union for being evil. And it might not seem like much, but simply saying that you recognize the evil of the other side and you will treat it as such, I think goes a long way towards the collapse of that side. What strategic motivation would Hamas have to accept a 3-day ceasefire in order to give up their only refuge just to start the war right after? But here's the thing, the war didn't restart. Ceasefire is not over. Hamas, at least as of right now, I mean, if Israel does something today, like later today or tomorrow, and I mean something substantiated, as in like going back into Gaza, simply striking, that doesn't break it. The Hamas will take that easily and do not care. Well, what was Hamas able to get away with? The fact is that IDF was pushing into Gaza City. IDF would soon occupy all of Gaza. It would be much harder for Hamas to do something after. So here, it's not just 3-day ceasefire. Ceasefire is still in place, and it has been more than a week. Hamas is consolidating its power. Hamas is like winning on the ground in the way that it's able to basically, yeah, execute its enemies. It has the Palestinians cheering for it. I mean, I'm sure people have seen the photos of people getting executed or just, you know, the act before. And Palestinians are around with their cameras and recording everything. So Hamas has that going for it. And if the ceasefire keeps going through and through, Hamas will stay in power. Hamas will never disarm. So I mean, Hamas is definitely in tough position, but it's doing what it can, and it is going pretty well for it. But only in the fact that we are not willing to do something about it. If we went, and by that I mean Israel, if we went and said, no, Hamas, that's over, we will occupy Gaza, we will destroy it, or we will occupy Gaza, we'll destroy Hamas, we'll destroy the Palestinian culture that made this possible, then we could see something. And it wouldn't matter what Hamas is doing, right? We have a super chat from Equal to Reality. Thank you so much. He says, keep it up, Daniel. Thank you so much. And yeah, because that's the thing with evil, right? If you try to compromise with it, it's impossible. They will always win. But once you stand up to it, they are worthless. They will not be able to do anything to you. I mean, like watching, and I think this is more incredible to do because Israel is both the good morally, but also it's like really strong. I mean, it can take out Iran, Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, and terrorist cells in Judea and Samaria at the same time. Uh, that's why sometimes it's a bit unique to what Ukraine is doing. Right now, Ukraine is like destroying the hell out of the Russian oil sector. I mean, that's amazing. That is absolutely what Ukraine should be doing. And that shows the incompetence of evil. And even that, like Ukraine is not like this like perfect Western state. It's very compromising, very corrupt in many ways. But comparatively, it's good, and it has the support of the good. Um, and it's slowing down Russia. It's stopping it. It's amazing. Bonnie says, I guess IDF can shoot now when being attacked, otherwise they are breaking the ceasefire, at least according to certain media. Um, I mean, thankfully, I haven't watched much, didn't check much Western media. But yeah, it's definitely whenever Israel strikes, it feels that's the violation. Um, but yeah, Hamas did start this one. I don't think there is any question about it. Uh, okay, with that, I think. Oh, and somebody says their goal is to drag this out as long as possible and increase their odds of the rest of the world interfering Israel's actions. Yeah, absolutely. It's their goal is definitely to drag this out for as long as possible. For whatever it might be, the other world sort of jumping in much more, or different ways. But yeah, this is absolutely the goal. Well, with that, I think we've covered it nicely. So I guess the end question is sort of, will the ceasefire collapse? Only if Israel wants to. And as of right now, it seems content with it going. So hopefully we'll get better news in the upcoming days. We have a um, we have a show tomorrow. It's most likely just gonna be the reality show. So that's the one that starts at 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. But you can join us for that. So with that, thank you guys for joining me today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.